Today, we are going to be talking about something that affects everybody at some point in their lives, and that's sugar cravings. And you sit there going, okay, do I not have willpower? What's going on with me? Why do I give in to this? I start out my day, I'm saying that I'm not going to give in to the sugar cravings. I'm really good all day. And then it hits me at night, whether it's the wine or the ice cream or just whatever your sweet treat is at night, maybe. And the reality is, it's not your fault. It's hardwired in the body. It truly is. That feeling of, I can't stop giving into the cravings. Well, you're not alone. And there's a reason that you give into those cravings, and not just one reason, but there's actually 3 reasons that you give in. There are 3 parallel pathways to the body that it has to recognize and seek out sweet taste. Now, when we're talking about smoking pot or doing cocaine or any other addiction, you have 1 dopamine pathway. With sugar, we have 3. So what does this mean? These 3 pathways are based on increasing that dopamine level in the brain. The dopamine is what makes you feel good, that happy feel-good hormone that our brain seeks and rewards behaviors that trigger a release of it. Animals have it. We have it. It's instinctual. The downside of dopamine is the brain's desire for a dopamine hit can lead to an addictive behavior, whether it's sugar, sex, gambling, drugs, anything that reinforces seeking of dopamine. And during COVID, for instance, we're all locked down and we've got this fear. Do you know that the gambling and sex addictions, porn addictions, food addictions, all have increased significantly because we don't have that regular dopamine hit that we're getting from social interactions, community, going to work and interacting with people, and we've been isolated. So we're seeking dopamine through these other pathways. One of the easiest way to get your dopamine hit is the kitchen's right in our house, right? It's our cupboards are filled with junk food, or even just a few little things that hit that sugar pathway and hits that dopamine. So that's where we find ourselves. Well, let's look at dopamine and sugar. As I mentioned, there are 3 separate parallel pathways, and those where sugar triggers a dopamine release and reinforce the seeking of sugar or glucose. And most drugs or alcohol or gambling, any of those things that seek dopamine, has 1 pathway, as I mentioned. And this is why sugar addiction is so strong and difficult to overcome. And the dopamine pathways have this really interesting pleasure pain balance, according to this Dr. Anna Lemke. And because of this phenomenon, as you're eating something sweet and satisfying, the dopamine level increases. And when that experience comes to an end, or it's almost there to an end, so here you are eating your piece of chocolate cake and you see that there's only like 3 bites left, right? Well, you actually then have this experience of pain, frustration, or lack response that is triggered from that dopamine hit, making you want to even more. So for instance, as you're enjoying that piece of chocolate cake and you're swallowing it, your neural pathway is craving it more, and it's pushing on that dopamine levels to back down. As a result, most people will reach for another piece of chocolate cake. And does this sound familiar? I know for me, when I'm eating my dessert, I'm seeing those last 3 bites going, I want more, I want more. I'm already thinking about going to get myself more. I'm not even enjoying those last few bites. So I'm wondering how many of you are experiencing the same thing. As a result, most people will reach for that next piece of chocolate cake, and the dopamine hit is never going to hit as high as the first one. And so you're always constantly striving to experience that first level of dopamine hit. Now, with drug use, you've heard of cocaine users or other types of drugs where you never get that hit that you first got, but you're constantly seeking that hit again, but you keep going and going and going, and you never do it. The longer you wait to indulge in that experience again, the greater the level of dopamine you'll experience once again. So this is why if you cut out sugars, sweeteners, alcohol, or anything else that triggers a dopamine response, it tends to reset that enjoyment of that item back to near the original level. I've mentioned before that I've cut out stevia, which is a sweetener, and we're going to get into hidden sweeteners and non-caloric sweeteners. And my sweet tastes have really reset, where things taste a lot sweeter to me because I've cut that out. And that's the same reason that if you cut out drinking for a while, you'll actually get buzzed off of a small amount of alcohol, whereas maybe it took you 2 or 3 drinks to feel that same level of a buzz before. So this is the way the dopamine pathway works in the body. And as a result, you're in this very wobbly and precarious state of balancing the pleasure and pain seesaw of a dopamine hit and dopamine pain. So I mentioned there's 3 pathways to the brain for sweet and dopamine. And the first pathway is the most obvious, the taste of sweet. So this could be sweet from sugar, from glucose, from artificial sweeteners. And it's related to the actual taste and perception of the taste that leads you to seek out more sweet containing foods. In other words, the sweet taste, the things we crave, triggers changes in our neural circuitry that to crave more of that thing or seek it out to fill that craving. Sugar and sweet taste, including non-caloric sweeteners, have an incredible ability to release dopamine. And this is especially true when you're ingesting sweet liquids due to the lack of fiber and that quick and concentrated delivery system of the sweetness, and without the act of chewing to blunt the rise of dopamine. So think about your kids having those juice boxes. It is literally like putting an IV of cocaine in their veins when you're talking about juice. And you do, if you're a grandma, if you're a mom, get the juice out of the house and stop giving it to the kids. They've shown that just four sweet drinks a week can change the brain of a child and cause ADHD. They were doing the study. They actually had to stop the study because it was so detrimental to these children. So number one, fruit juices, all sweet drinks, all Coca-Colas, and all of the real sugar drinks, get them out of your diet. That's a number one thing. We just need to get out and say no more. The connection is so powerful that our brains become extremely focused on getting more of that sweet source. As soon as you put something sweet in your mouth, the neurons in and around your mouth are registering the sweet taste and seeking more of it. So it is truly a drug. And it's nothing to do with your willpower. Really, it's not. So that's the most obvious pathway. Pathway 2 is really interesting. This is called post-ingestive dopamine. In addition to our perception of sweets and its effect on our dopamine, there's this post-ingestive reinforcing property of sugar. And this occurs in the gut, when our bodies registering foods that we've eaten that increase blood glucose. And this occurs about 15 minutes after you've eaten the sweet food. The neurons in our gut register that we have eaten glucose or anything that will raise our blood sugar, and it sends this a signal to the brain through the vagus nerve to something called the nodose ganglion, to the nucleus of the solitary tract. And it also triggers an activation of the dopamine pathways within the reward pathway of the brain. You don't need to remember all of that, but just know that there's a second pathway that goes from the gut to the brain saying, there's some glucose in my gut. Glucose gives me energy. I want more of that. due to this fact, the fact that sweetness of the food is usually paired with blood glucose. So that is where the connection is. And this mechanism increases dopamine further beyond just the enjoyment pathway of dopamine that we talked about in pathway number 1. This is why when you eat something sweet, your brain tells you, I want to eat more, and eat more. And this is where hidden sugars, or sugars that you can't taste the sweetness of, can trick your gut and the brain. These hidden sugars in the processed foods and packaged foods are there to trick you into wanting more of that food, independent of how sweet the food tastes. And the biggest culprit is maltodextrin. This is a common hidden sugar. It actually doesn't taste sweet, but it actually raises your blood sugar more than sugar. It is maltodextrin. When we are done with this call, I want you to go into your pantry and pick out some crackers and sugar and chips and look on their ingredients. I did myself, and I was shocked to see that an organic Trader Joe's potato chips have maltodextrin in it. The only goal of that product having maltodextrin in it is to trick my gut into wanting more. Nothing else. Potato chips, they're not supposed to be sugary or sweet. My mouth doesn't taste sugar or sweet when I eat them, but my gut registers the maltodextrin and says, ooh, that's hitting my dopamine pathway. I want more. And then there's this common dopamine combination between sweet and salt that tricks our brain even more, that we're going to get into in a minute. But a lot of times food use salt to hide the sweet taste and the sweetness in those salty foods that are not meant to be sweet, to trick your brain into saying, I want more. This is hitting my dopamine pathway, and let's go eat more. Foods like the crackers and the chips that are not meant to be sugary, and they cause you to crave more, even if they don't have that sugary taste, but they have the hidden sugars in them. So pathway number 3, which is the blood glucose rise. There's this third pathway that's encouraging sugar cravings, and that's in that the gut is registering a food that will actually increase blood glucose. This is a survival mechanism in which the body and the brain prefer glucose for energy. So as soon as it registers that the food will raise up your blood sugar, it's going to seek out more of it. The sweet pathway is very different from the neural pathways that seek savory, salt, or bitter foods. The body is hardwired to seek out the sweet foods due to the fact that your nervous system and many cells in your brain and body run on glucose. And part of that intelligent system includes the ability of your liver's ability to turn fructose into glucose. It also can turn protein into glucose through a process called gluconeogenesis. And all animals, not just people, prefer sugary taste to non-sugary taste, and for this reason. So if you give rats or mice a sugar water versus a regular water, they are going to prefer the sugar water. One issue connected with this pathway is related to when the artificial sweeteners, not just maltodextrin, which raises blood sugar on its own, are ingested along with the food that raises your blood sugar. So let's talk about, say you're drinking your Diet Coke and you're eating a burger with a bun as well with that Diet Coke. Well, there's this Pavlovian response where the body then is conditioned to release insulin when you just have the non-caloric artificial sweeteners, such as the Diet Coke alone, something with aspartame, saccharin, or even possibly stevia, even when that's just had alone or consumed alone, leading to the detrimental side effects of high insulin. High insulin causes inflammation, causes diabetes, causes all the metabolic diseases that we are being bombarded with nowadays. And that can be triggered just by that non-caloric sweetener that we could be having. So mid-afternoon, you're feeling tired, you have your iced tea with stevia or your Diet Coke, and you think it's great because you're not having any calories. That can have a blood sugar and an insulin response, causing a cascade of problems. So this is where we really need to reset our sugar and our sweet taste. Not only does the insulin trigger the body to store fat, but it's also going to increase the cravings for sweet foods and drinks just by ingesting that non-caloric sweetened drink or food like the diet soda. So remember, dopamine has this wobbly seesaw of pain and pleasure response. And the diet soda or the stevia sweet treat is kind of putting us in that precarious position. So really think twice about when you are having these sweeteners and not just the actual sugar. So that's all the bad news. How do we curb our sugar cravings? What is the good news? You want to, number one, slow the rise of dopamine. That is our goal, okay? So when we talk about a dopamine hit, that's also in pursuit of life goals. We actually are happier with a dopamine hit from the pursuit of an essay we're writing or training for the marathon. The actual marathon is not going to get us that dopamine hit. The gold medal, that's not the dopamine hit. The dopamine hit is the striving for it. So we want to, in the same way, we want to slow the rise of dopamine with our sugar intake or our sweet intake. And then we also want to find healthy alternative ways to increase dopamine. So let's see how we can do that. Number one, the accelerated keto is going to help put your body into ketosis and fat burning within that 30 minutes. Now, what is that going to do? That's going to, number one, help your appetite control, increase your physical and mental energy, teaches your body to utilize its own fat stores for energy. So it's not seeking out that glucose hit, right? And as your energy increases and your cravings for sugar decrease, you're able to seek alternative dopamine hits through activities, your mental pursuits, healthy proteins, proper salt consumption. So then you're actually going to feel thirst and an appetite for salt, which your body needs, because there's this confusion in the brain where the wires get crossed between your desire for salt and desire for sweet. So you're actually craving more salt for hydration, because we actually get our energy from hydration, not from food. We've got thousands of calories to burn on our body for energy. We actually don't need immediate food for that energy. We need the salt for that. And the accelerated keto kind of squashes that need for glucose. And so you're actually going to then crave the salt, crave the water. You're going to get dopamine hits through your workout, through your mental pursuits from just whatever you're working on at work or with family or community, doing things with friends. You're also going to be focusing on eating your healthy proteins. And we're going to get into that in a minute and how that can help satisfy your dopamine as well. You don't need that immediate outside food source to fuel the body. And your body then is concentrated on cleaning out the bad cells, reducing in the inflammation as you're intermittent fasting and using the accelerated keto, feeding the brain amazing energy and those ketones. Those ketones are clean burning fuel with very little oxidative stress. So your body doesn't need a lot of antioxidants to combat the oxidative stress. And the accelerated keto is different than most other ketone supplements because of the other ingredients in there, where it's going to increase ATP production in the cells, which is your true cellular energy. It's defatting your liver where the fat burning occurs. It helps alleviate brain fog. And you don't need to eat a high fat diet to benefit from the accelerated keto. The next is the Berberine HCl. So this is going to blunt the rise of blood sugar, which is going to blunt the rise of the dopamine. And most people with insulin resistance have this high and low roller coaster of blood sugar. Okay. And that dopamine's also going to be on that blood sugar roller coaster. So the berberine helps slow down that blood glucose rise and dampen it so the blood glucose doesn't rise as high, and it slows it down. And then also the HCl is going to help digest the healthy fats and proteins that you're going to be focused on. So it helps support pathogenic and bacterial balance in the gut, improve the blood sugar, improve digestion, improve weight management, and helps break down the proteins and fats as well. Next is the acceleridine. This helps stabilize blood sugar. It increases mood, increases physical and mental energy. Most sugar cravings are linked to lower mood, depression, low energy, your blood sugar that can't be satisfied. And this is why acceleridine is correlated with lower blood sugar cravings. It also can take someone in a diabetic crisis in a high blood sugar state. So if you've got a family member that is insulin resistant or diabetic and their blood sugar is super high, give them a dose of the acceleridine. It will actually lower their blood sugar. Not only is acceleridine helpful with the blood sugar, but it's antiviral, antifungal, antibacterial, antimicrobial. It reduces inflammation. It also can help with parasites, because did you know that parasites eat your serotonin in your gut? So that's why low mood and depression is linked to gut issues and parasites. So the acceleridine helps fight the parasites, which then increases mood. And if you're feeling good, you're not going to be just eating sugar and binge eating to help with depression. So that's why it's like kind of this nice domino effect and things working better. And when you combine the acceleridine with the accelerated keto, your mood is up, your brain fog lifts, you feel better, your energy's better, you're doing the other things that increase dopamine in a healthy way. And the acceleridine is the only iodine, as we've mentioned, that is enhanced with scalar energy. It is reducing the radiation in your body, reducing the heavy metals. Radiation really makes your DNA unstable and scattered. And that can cause this feeling of shakiness. And what do people do when they're having anxiety or feel nervous? They eat. So another way that this is going to help with your dopamine. And it is 100% bioavailable. Most iodines only have 10 to 20% absorption. It also produces apoptosis. You've heard me talk about this before. This means it causes cell death of weak or cancer cells. This is a good thing. We want those weak cells, those cancer cells, to die and go away. And then our body's going to produce the healthy cells. It also can reverse the damage done to the DNA by mRNA and the spike proteins and the graphene oxide. Next is the accelerated ancient salt. And I mentioned this before. Those parallel pathways that exist are with sugar and salt to the brain. And you can use the accelerated ancient salt to satisfy your appetite when you're having a sugar craving. It can be very effective. Just putting the salt on your tongue can make the appetite squash and can also stabilize your blood sugar. It can also, you hydrate the cells. So a lot of times you think you're hungry, you're actually just thirsty. So it's not just the best salt to taste, but it also has a strong negative charge to the salt. And what this does, it pulls out the positively charged toxins, parasites, and undigested fats. It's made from pure raw salt from an area in Utah and also the Himalayas and the Andes Mountains. No other salt is like this. It's charged with scalar frequencies to help detox the body of radiation and heavy metals as well. And you can just put it on your tongue. You can put it in a glass of water, put it on your food, take a bath with it. It reduces blood sugar. It can be used to help with appetite control, sugar cravings, alleviates nausea. A lot of people feel nauseous when they eat too much fat at one time. The salt on your tongue can help with that as well. It breaks down those undigested fats and just tastes good, really does. The next one is the quintessential, and there's the 0.9 and the 3.3. They both hydrate the cells at that cellular level, and that can help satisfy sugar cravings due to the mixed signaling in the brain between sugar and salt. It is the exact compilation or consistency of electrolytes as our blood plasma. So it's literally like giving your body a bath in the proper electrolytes, not just salt. It supports homeostasis, rehydration, and normal hydration. Next is the choline inositol. This can facilitate burning of stored fat, has been shown to prevent abnormal or excessive liver accumulation of cholesterol and triglycerides. I love taking this. It also helps with healthy methylation and hormonal balance. Next is what I've been pounding into your brains over and over and over again is the ingestion of the proper amino acids and omega-3 fatty acids. The omega-3 fatty acids you can get from wild fish, but also wild animal protein. Did you know grass-fed meats, red meat, has a lot of omega-3 fatty acids in it? And just as the gut has neuropod cells to register glucose in the gut when we eat it, it also has neuropods to register omega-3 fatty acids. And when those omega-3 fatty acids are ingested, they trigger a dopamine release, curbing your cravings for glucose and trigger us that feeling of, okay, I've had enough nutrients, I'm no longer hungry. And it same goes for when you're eating the right amino acids from the wild animal protein. Certain amino acids like glutamine also trigger those neuropod cells in the gut that trigger a dopamine release in addition to satisfy your appetite cravings. And by triggering these dopamine releases through this alternative pathway and eating a nutrient-dense food, the sugar cravings go away. You can also use lemon, lime, and apple cider vinegar in your water. Consuming these before or at the same time as sugar blunt the rise in the blood sugar. So like I said, we want to make sure that rise isn't spiked and down, right? We want it to go slowly. You can use these acids, lemon, lime, and apple cider vinegar in your drinks or in your food to lessen the cravings for more glucose. Next, it's on every single blog, every single health article. What do we always point to for your health? And that's sleep. If the body fails to get sufficient sleep, you're not going to like what I say. Blood sugar will rise on its own. And ghrelin, the hunger hormone, will rise. That's why you get more hungry if you didn't get a good night's sleep, causing cravings to increase. And it also increases cortisol, the stress hormone, which on its own, away from eating any sugar, will increase blood glucose through a separate pathway. So our blood sugar is going to rise when we don't get sugar, when we don't get sleep, even if we don't eat the sugar. What happens with that? We're going to store fat when we do eat. We're going to have even more insulin resistance, more risk for diabetes, more risk for inflammation throughout the body, and the cascade of disease occurs when we don't get our sleep. So what's the lesson here? We need our sleep. We need our sleep. We need our sleep. So do what you need to do to get the sleep. Next is walk for 10 minutes after each meal. By taking a short walk after a meal, the rise in blood sugar is slowed, and so is the rise in dopamine. And you're going to get a second hit of dopamine from doing something good for yourself. That walk is going to lower cortisol. Hopefully you're looking at the sun, or the sun going down, maybe the moon coming up, seeing the birds, just appreciating God's nature. And that's going to help with your cortisol level, and it's going to help with your blood sugar levels as well. And it's going to probably give that daily interrupt, or that habit interrupt, where you won't then just mindlessly go into having another glass of wine or having dessert after your healthy meal. So it gives you that pause, right? And these pauses are really healthy to make you think, okay, do I really want that? Or is it just my brain going into automatic mode, seeking something to get that dopamine hit? So those are my clues into how to curb our sugar cravings. And it's not that easy, but hopefully these tips are going to help you. This is something I've been fighting all my life, whether it was real sugar or a different alternative or artificial sweetener, to then stevia, which I thought was a healthy alternative, which backs up your liver. They all are detrimental to your liver at some level or not. Stevia, for most people in a very moderate amount, is probably the healthiest alternative. But be very mindful when you are doing sweets, whether it's true sugar or not. I have found that my body really would prefer whole food carbs, whether it's sweet potatoes or fruit. I'm enjoying fruit, but I'm enjoying the whole fruit. I like it better than alcohol. I like it better than the artificial sweetener. And that's where my body is in a happy place. Alcohol, just so you know, is a double whammy, because it's, number one, it's got the sugar in there, but it stops the fat burning immediately because your body sees it as a poison, and it halts all fat burning. It says, oh my God, here we've got a poison. What are we going to do with it? We've got to metabolize it really quickly, and every other single morsel of food that's coming into the body, we're going to store as fat. So that's just another little tip there, is if you are trying to lose weight, alcohol is not your friend. If you have any questions for me, put them in the chat. Thank you all for joining today, and I will post this in the chat as we always do. Please invite your friends to the group Telegram group chat, and please share this. I don't know anyone who has not experienced a sugar dopamine issue. It is out there. It is probably the biggest addiction, and maybe the addiction is with alcohol or gambling, but this will definitely apply to them as well. So please share this, and also share the group education, because that is the way I'm able to reach as many people as I can. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a great night.